Okay, I've already fixed my planer completely, but now it's the start of the video, and I just wanted to make a point to say that I took off this entire piece and brought it in my house, but that was just because it was so cold in my unheated shed and I needed to be close to my little kids, and it was going to be a really freezing week. So you don't need to take all this apart and up just to change the rollers if that's what you're doing, or to change the knives. That's just what I did. But if you're curious to see what it looks like underneath, when it's removed, and how I did it, then go ahead and watch the video. Okay, I'm making a brutal, horrible video on this Delta planer, the DC-380. I'm making this video because nobody else had made a video on YouTube, and I really would have appreciated if somebody had. just anything really, just to see how it came apart. So I'll show you, I've got it apart now a little bit. I'll show you how I got to here. All right. Okay, so this is the Outfeed side. So the first thing we did, you'll see, was the motor. Used to be on top of there. So what you can do is you can undo all 4 of those. It's metric. But you won't be able to lift the motor off just yet because the belts are so tight. So I took these off. I wanted to pull the motor back through this hole, but I couldn't because the belts were on. So to get the belts looser, you can loosen this one, and this one, and that'll take off this plate here. And that's what I did originally. And then it gave me a little bit of play on the belts, except maybe it could have been better, but I just kept moving the belts to the front, moving them to the front, moving to the front till they were off. But I believe if I did this 4th one, that it would have swung down and it would have been looser. So before I did that, I actually marked where the bolts were with marker because I wasn't sure if I need to know that yet still. And also the belts had an arrow on them going that way from Infeed to Outfeed. So I just did another little Sharpie mark there to record what way the belts were. So that once the belts were off, I was able to pull the motor back. So that was great. It's heavy though. Okay, Emmett's taking off the chains right now. Apparently you can take off the rollers when this is on the machine still, but it's like -20 and howling outside with snow, so we wanted to bring it into the house, closer to the kids to do it. So this has gone, so we're going to take off that as well, and then hopefully the rest isn't too bad getting the roller off. Alright, Emmett just took off that spring right there. Just take your needle nose pliers and pop it off. Now that's free.
Well, right now this is spinning in here, but this peened over mark should hold it to this bracket. So this spins on the bearing instead, but that's really stiff.
Okay.
So right now it's spinning in the bracket, wearing the bracket out even more.
Okay. So those pulleys are just held on there with the keys in the middle, you can see. So we just pulled them off. Pry bars worked, you didn't need one of those pullers.
No, just this big screwdriver.
Sweet. On the outside.
3-job puller is kind of stupid.
Yeah. Whoopa! Nice.
Don't lose the keys.
Right. Awesome. So that took care of that right there, like the pulleys. I'm not sure which one it is. So next up is we've got this spring that goes into the bushing that sets the tension. And then underneath there's a plate that
Springs
I guess
are under these caps.
the springs are under there. Okay. And then there's adjustments on the bottom here. Apparently these adjustments are for, I guess, straightening it out after you have the rollers in there. metric 6. Gonna take these out. Alright, so we got the plugs out, the Allen plugs there, and the springs, those are them. We just pulled them out a bit, just checking to make sure nothing's wrong with them, but they felt good when they're in there. So those look good. They didn't come flying out when I took them out, and just gonna put those back in there. And all the springs are the same length, and so are the Allen plugs, so don't have to worry about that. All right, now in all weirdness, this is a 9/16 here, and we're having to use a wrench because this is in the way, which kind of is a guide to put it in the hole and line it up. So we're not touching any of our tensioners down here. I guess we got a persuasion bar for this one. Okay, good. So we got that off with just a little screwdriver, smaller screwdriver. Now we're just putting it there so we don't mix it up because we're hoping to not have to do too many adjustments when we get it back together. So yahoo. So you can see that'll come out now. So to the other side we go. Ta-da! Nice. Little Allen. Grub screw, whatever it was in the way. How she look? Worry about the oil, how we think it's going down here.
Well, I think the oil goes in these cavities. You pull that pipe plug out every now and then. No, that doesn't make sense because there's a hole in it.
Oh, maybe. Hold on.
That does make sense because there's a hole in it.
Oh, there's a hole in the top. Oh, it goes all the way through.
You gotta look up that in the manual.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up.
There's got to be some way though to get
oil to it. But let's show me the other bushing, like how.
Well, that's
what you
like
got there.
C's down here. They're not C's, but
So on there super tight, and that little hole that you can see at the top, which is what we think the oil goes down.
It's full of rust. And
yeah.
Not good.
Not good. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we have decided that that is how it works. The spot on the top drips down here where the roller was into, and then so the spring would be all here and going up. So our maintenance will be dripping oil down there, and we've cleaned out this hole now, and that should drip down to the bushing now and the bearings. That was never ever done, and I guess some people say that it can clog with sawdust online, and now we know why though. That's because that's the screw that we took out, or the grub plug that we took out. So as you can see, it's got a hole, so it's just sitting on the top there. So yeah, I'm gonna just put a couple pieces of tape in there on top of there when we get it back together and all lubed up and everything, and that should help us in the future. But we're just seeing right now if our bushings are sloppy on the rollers, which they aren't, are they?
No.
Like that one.
Yeah, it's tight.
That one feels tight.
This one
we got some work to do on this one because it's just needs some lube, and then we'll reassess after we probably. Alright, so we got lazy and we just did wood and hammer and tried to knock it, but it wouldn't go because this one's so, I guess, rusty in there because it hasn't been oiled ever since it was bought a decade or so, at least a decade ago, I believe. So we're going WD-40, working it in there, and then I guess we'll start bashing again. In the meantime, we've got so many bushings going on here, I'm just trying to label them. 3 ticks on this one have to line up. This one will have to have 2 ticks, and do I guess 1 and 4 over there or something. So we filled these both with oil on the end, or not oil, with WD-40. And we're just, so we never got that other side off. It was really tight. Obviously this WD-40 is helping, but we're thinking that, well, if we keep prying it and pulling it off, we're going to elongate the hole because there's a ridge in there. So, oh, it's getting cold in here. So we're thinking we're going to quit while we're ahead so we don't have to buy a new one of these rollers and just leave that on there, because we do see that when we put the, oh, you got it? Just needed more lube. Woohoo!
rusty. And there's ridges definitely in it, but
So much. You don't or do?
the ridges got worn into it, but it's still workable. And this is full of rust, but we'll get it washed out and then actually maintain it now.
Gonna maintain it. Oh, nice. It's pretty amazing that this machine did so well for so long, right? Like, considering it's just a beast in my mind. All right, so I have cleaned everything out of the channel in there. All you to see the rust from in there and the gloobers and globbers. I've cleaned this off, which is going to go in here, and I've cleaned the bottom of the plug off and the inside and all this off, and then inside here. That's where the oil's going to drip down to get to bushing in there. So I'm going to maybe put a little WD-40 on it right now, but when we oil it later, it'll get in there nice and good. And we'll start on the next one.
Okay.
Gotta figure out how I'm gonna center this in here. The bushings, and if I want to push them in more. Out more. Okay, so putting these on, and I'm not gonna tighten them yet because I'm talking to Emmett, and this can go back and forth even when it's tightened there. So we're gonna wait till we have the sprockets and everything on the end. We'll see how it sort of sits then, and then we'll come back and address where we want these bushings to sit. A little more left, a little more right, la 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 la. Oh yeah. Let's see what this one looks like. Ooh. We thought the other one was going to be the bad one.
Not good.
Not good. Little bit of play, and it's quite scratched inside, obviously, but overall, like, I can't measure the play, it's so small. Try the other side. Okay, next I had to come to the other side, and I had to use an Allen key, I believe it was, to get that bolt out, and then I tried to squishy this back, and I couldn't quite, because I had to undo just one of these sides. So as you can see here, it's just 2 bolts. You can undo that, and then that shroud will come off, and then you can pull it off, or you can take both off. So then that was able to get off, and then you were left with this. Now if I tip this back, some oil will fall out, which is fine, but that's the gears, so we're not sure what's happening there. This feels stiff, and we're thinking this looks too loose. Maybe it needs one of those too. We don't know. We don't know. Okay, but so then you take that cover off, and then to get this actually off of the stand, we didn't know if we should take out these entire sticks from the bottom or not. But as it turned, but it's chains under there, so it seemed like maybe we'd be getting into something with all the chains attached. So what you can actually do is you can raise your head up all the way, and then you'll feel it go bunk and hit, and that's these things. These things are what go up and down. So once we got to the top and it went bunk, then we undid those grub screws. They're like an Allen head key. So they're like 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously the other side's the same. So we undid those, and then it was like intense, because that's probably like 200 pounds as it is now. So we had to take this off because we were yanking and reefing, and we were like, let's just get that off of here. And then I had to like stand on the trolley, and my husband was on the other side, and with those out, and you had to take this off. The handle, it's just a nut. It's super easy. Note on that though, the way you put it on originally is there's a little key here. So this has a little place right there that it fits into, and then it sticks out a little bit, so it grabs that handle there. So basically, I add this little piece, makes it stick out a bit from there, which gives it an edge for the handle to grab. So I'm just keeping that there so I don't lose it, obviously. obviously, so just be careful. You're gonna keep an eye out for that. But so once we had it ungrub screwed and the handle off, it was just like a rocking back and forth, a going back and forth, and eventually we just kept putting blocks under, blocks under, blocks under, blocks under. As we got higher and higher, it got really heavy and tiring, and obviously everything's not sliding good. But eventually we got it up, and then we wheeled the dolly over here and popped it on the table. And that's where we're leaving it for tonight because it's bedtime. But just wanted to show you that because, you know, we're scratching our heads, and it's always just nice if you can watch a little video on something before you do it. Okay, so my husband cleaned this off on the back and then welded it up. So this now spins, and that part at the back's not spinning around anymore. He says it's too bad, but there's no bearing in here. So just the way it is the way it is. It's got some WD-40 in there anyways, and it's spinning good enough, but not like if it was a bearing. But so that's good. So now I can start assembling again. Good. We're just put the washer in behind there, or the bushing or whatever it is. Spacer, got that on. Hooked this part on, and this part's now going to hook behind there. And then we're going to just leave it for a bit because these are all sloppy because we don't have the springs set for tension. So I think we're going to go put this all back on top and start messing with all the adjustments. So these in the manual say to put a common grease on there. So Emmett's got some EP2, I guess it's called. Okay, so that's those. And then we did a little Scotch-Brite would work, but all I had was some 4/0 steel wool, so we just cleaned those up a bit. And the manual doesn't say anything for those, but they are sliding up and down on sort of this little section there and on the bottom. So we're gonna put some Teflon spray because it's non-oily lubricant. So because it's going up and down through the wood chip area. So yeah, Teflon spray for that. And then I guess light machine oil on the chains. We're not sure what we're using for that yet. But we are just kind of getting the dust off everything we can see. I took the hood off to get the dust off and see what we got going on here. Okay, so down that hole and all the holes, but there's a little round disc, and it's got one flat side on it, sort of like a round bushing. It's got one flat side, and the flat side's got to follow the curve. Otherwise you'll never get it on if that little thing is sticking out a tiny bit. So the circle, stick it in there a bit. You got to make sure it's lined up properly and the flat part's following this. So we're leaving off our knobs, and we're going to see if we can get it on now. I'm just going to grease these quickly with me Teflon spray. So we did end up getting it on. We just popped off these caps here and just saw what we were hanging up on. So we ended up just taking the rubber mallet and had to hit a couple of these a couple times, and then we got it set. And we got to put these on. You see that? And we'll put those on. So now those are good and tight, and we can put the handle back on and move it up and down. Then we tightened these, so they're just tight, tight, tight. Even though we haven't done anything to the rollers yet. We still think this looks funny, super sloppy, but we're thinking maybe, well, my husband's thinking maybe because it's so slow it won't matter. But we do see, it does have an extra half link there. So if we needed to, we could take that out. But obviously they put it in for a reason, you'd think, right? So then I opened up this drain, took that drain plug, drained everything, and now we're just filling up your oil right there. Husband's just got a hose so we can get it in there. And I guess once it comes out of that hose, you say it's full. Once it comes out of the hole, it's full. Okay, I'm not going to really totally show this stuff because it's in the manual, but even though these rollers aren't in position yet from underneath, I haven't tightened them yet, I'm going to change the knives on this one. So you can see there's these locking screws here, 5 on each cutter head, and what it does is when it holds the knife in, it's like you can see this black bar, that's holding this knife towards that cutter head. So what you're actually doing is moving these out and they're pushing against the back of this here to keep pressure. So I'm going to take those out now on all of them, but you can see all that in the book, but just so you see, it's this bar is pushing against the knives with these putting the pressure on. So I'm going to take that all out and change my, I guess, knives now. Okay, I'm going to show just because it's cool. So this is where the locking, the blade was just in here, the cutters, and then the locking bar was here pushing against it. But that's neat. That's what these Allen keys are going to do. So as it's going to raise and lower the knives, because can you see that little ledge that the knives are going to sit on? Right there. So yeah, later when we do the adjustments, it's going to be up and down. That's neat that that's how they work. So there's 2 of them. Here's the other one. Okay, so sadly I did down all of these before I had all my rollers set. So now, I didn't pay attention when I was doing it. Now all my plates that are on the bottom, all of them are bent. That was not too bad, but this one's been bent. You can see that gap. So that was because I did the tensioners and then tried to reel these out. Just not very smart. So now I gotta take all the little plates off and re-bend them back to flat. Okay, I used my vise and I got those plates straightened out. So now I've used my gauge block and I have set that roller there. And I'm just doing the tension on them. It says on this Infeed about 4 threads showing above is a good average. So I have the Infeed roller set. I don't have the Outfeed roller set yet because I'm missing a little nut for that one. So I'll go find something. And right now I'm just putting the motor back on, and I was pretty pumped to get it on and try doing the new way with using this swing one here to swing the motor down and get the belts on. But I've done that and I need to swing it a little bit more, except I'm getting hung up on my Allen head where the oil goes in there. So I guess I'm gonna have to do like last time and just get them on somehow by undoing those 3 bolts there. Okay, so she's about back together. I've done the last ones now and the last roller. Now I'm just taking, I don't even know if this is exactly what you should use, but I'm using some 20 there, motor oil. So I'm just gonna go in that little hole there and do a splooge. Like, I don't know, I'm doing like a teaspoon. And then after I splooged it in all of those, I'm gonna wipe them off, cover them up with some tape. I'll probably get some earplugs or something, some foam ones, and shove them in there, but now I get to test it. Yahoo! And that's a wrap. So I took some 5/4 cedar and put it through the planer. I don't have a jointer. That's the next overhaul I have to do, but I did take some measurements and it does seem like this side is the same as this side, so I think all my rollers are set properly. The first couple passes I did have a problem of my board going most of the way through. It would sort of go through, and then it would end up stopping just past the Infeed roller. So the Outfeed roller wasn't catching it quite. I ended up not really changing a measurement on my rollers because I was pretty sure I had those good, but I ended up putting some, I don't have paste wax, but I have some glide coat that I put on the bed, and that just doing that alone just helped it slip right through. So now it's feeding through the whole way, no problem. As a note, when I did put in my roller, because it's worn on the one side, I did sort of set the roller based on the unworn side and the unworn middle. That's where I put my gauge block underneath when I was setting it, and this side I just kind of didn't put my gauge block over here because it's all small over there. So the two good parts, I did put the gauge block and sort of measure it. So I was thinking that was maybe the problem, but it seems it's totally fine now that I've cleaned up the bed a bit there. Yeah, it just feels really good to be done it. I've got to set these Infeed and Outfeed rollers. I think when I tried to set them before, they needed to go lower, but the holes that are already drilled in there, I just couldn't get the tables to go any lower. So I'm gonna just try swapping them and seeing if the holes line up better and I can actually lower them to the right height. But other than that, this is just wonderful. It's a working planer again, and I mean, it was always working, but geez, it was in a bad state. And again, sorry that the video was so awful. I just wanted to watch something before I did this build and there was nothing. And I think it's a pretty cool planer. I don't know why there's not more videos on it, but purely educational. I do not enjoy editing videos. This is not my thing, but I hope you enjoy.